Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a massively debated global question, and we're going to do it using hard data and verified sources. We constantly hear about China's staggering industrial growth, right? But the big question is, do university majors actually explain this economic shift? China trains enormous numbers of engineers and has become an industrial powerhouse. That looks like a simple explanation until we test the complete economic chain. It's incredibly tempting to just look at a headline and assume a direct one-to-one cause and effect, but macroeconomics, it is rarely that simple. Today, we're going to dive deep behind those headlines to see what the numbers actually reveal about education, industrial policy, and global competitiveness. Act 1. The case for the education hypothesis. Let's look at the absolute strongest evidence for this idea. Okay, let's dive into this. The story really kicks off with China's historic 1999 higher education enrollment expansion policy. This initiated an absolute tidal wave of university program expansion. We're talking about higher education enrollment surging from just over 5.5 million in 1999 to over 48 million today. That is a massive leap. And this wasn't just random growth. The state intentionally steered students toward vocational and applied education, specifically pushing the engineering disciplines. The sheer absolute production of science and engineering graduates generated by this expansion is, it's staggering. China produces nearly 6 million bachelor's degrees total every single year, and over 1.17 million of those are in engineering and technology. To put that into perspective, the U.S. produces about 170,000 engineering and tech degrees. The entire European Union, roughly 390,000. So China's annual output of STEM graduates literally dwarfs the total higher education output of the US and EU combined. This massive supply creates what is known in China as a Rinzhai Hongli, or a talent dividend. Now, let's be really clear here. These university graduates did not create China's industrial system entirely on their own. But having this abundant supply of engineering graduates provides the absolutely critical human infrastructure needed for factory management, process improvement, running engineering-intensive supply chains, and driving rapid technology adoption right on the factory floor. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the shift happening at the very highest levels of education. It's not just about bachelor's degrees anymore. China's annual STEM PhD graduates are projected to hit over 77,000 by 2025. That nearly doubles the output of the United States. And here's a crucial difference. While over 50% of U.S. STEM doctoral recipients are international students, China's doctoral cohort is almost entirely domestic, driven by their centrally administered elite double first-class research institutions. And all of this advanced degree growth directly fuels KG Changxin, which means scientific and technological innovation. By expanding their pool of engineering and scientific doctorates, China can staff massive, localized research teams. This translates directly into an escalating global impact in research and development, fostering deep industry-university cooperation that really pushes the boundaries of applied science. Ultimately, this strategic investment in technical fields is what supports Chanye Shangji, or industrial upgrading. Think about it. When you combine a massive talent dividend with robust scientific innovation, you can scale advanced industries incredibly fast. This technical workforce is the exact foundation required to dominate modern manufacturing capacity in key sectors like electric vehicles, advanced batteries, renewable energy, heavy machinery, electronics, and industrial automation. Act 2. Why the simple story breaks down. Because as you'll see, the full picture requires a lot more nuance. First up, we really have to look past the absolute numbers and evaluate the population-adjusted data. Yes, China leads in sheer volume. But when you look at science and engineering graduates per 100,000 young adults, the gap looks totally different. China produces 1,775 per 100,000. That still beats the US and UK, which hover just under 1,000. But if we zoom out to overall tertiary attainment, meaning the percentage of the total working-age population with advanced degrees, the US and many European nations still rank significantly higher. Plus, absolute numbers completely ignore variations in program quality, not to mention the immense importance of technicians and vocational workers who don't even hold university degrees. So the crucial point is this. We absolutely cannot use a catch-all phrase like Western decline as a single measurable variable to contrast with China's rise. Economies are incredibly complex. We have to carefully differentiate between distinct challenges: slow GDP growth, weak productivity growth, industrial decline, demographic aging, fiscal pressure, political dissatisfaction. These are completely distinct issues. They are not interchangeable, and a lack of engineering graduates isn't the sole cause for any of them. We also need to recognize that there are alternative paths to economic success. Let's look at knowledge and technology intensive, or KTI sectors. China absolutely dominates KTI manufacturing, holding a 31% global share. But the United States leads the world in KTI services with a 43% global share, which is heavily concentrated in software publishing, where the US actually commands a massive 75% of the market. These are two divergent models, both highly successful, proving that manufacturing isn't the only way to build an advanced economy. Let's fit this into the broader macroeconomic picture. You need more than just engineers. Advanced economies are heavily supported by fields like software, finance, law, healthcare, management, design, and the social sciences. Furthermore, China's manufacturing scale is heavily bolstered by massive domestic and global demand and an incredibly aggressive industrial policy. Just to put some numbers on it, in 2019, China spent an estimated 1.7% of its GDP on direct industrial policy, things like subsidies, R&D support, and cheap credit. That was more than 4 times the US level at the time. And if you ignore these other variables, you run into a very real paradox: overeducation and underemployment. In China, producing massive numbers of STEM graduates without generating enough high-skill, knowledge-service jobs has led to structural mismatches. This means a lot of graduates end up employed in fields completely unrelated to their degrees. Conversely, in the West, the challenge isn't an inability to train technical talent. It's that the absolute top STEM talent is frequently absorbed by highly lucrative finance, law, and management consulting sectors instead of manufacturing. Act 3. How much does education really explain? Let's build a causal framework to figure this out. So, do STEM degrees automatically create economic growth? It's a provocative question, and it's one policymakers worldwide obsess over. But the answer actually relies on a very specific chain of events. Let's break it down. And this brilliantly illustrates the causal framework required for an education-driven economy. Step 1, students enter technical programs. Step 2, they complete those degrees and acquire highly relevant skills. Step 3, firms actually employ them in roles matching those skills. Step 4, companies combine this human capital with equipment, venture finance, management, and research. And finally, Step 5, this combination drives innovation, which raises productivity or enables industrial expansion. Here is the critical takeaway: a failure at any single stage, like a lack of capital or a mismatch in skills, weakens the entire economic effect. So when we assess this education hypothesis, we can't just force the same answer for every outcome. For China's incredible manufacturing scale and technological upgrading, the high composition of engineering majors is absolutely a major explanatory factor. For their scientific research output, it's an important contributing factor. But when you look at overall GDP growth or digital services dominance, the composition of university fields is only a limited contributing factor. Finally, we have to acknowledge the direction of causality here, because it actually runs both ways. Think about it. A massive, booming manufacturing economy naturally demands more engineers just to keep it running. But at the same time, producing more engineers gives that exact manufacturing economy the talent it needs to expand and adopt new technologies. Both of these effects can and do occur simultaneously. It's an incredible feedback loop. Which leaves us with this final thought. University majors can help explain parts of China's industrial rise, but they cannot explain China's economy or Western economic challenges on their own. The global economy is just this intricate, giant web of industrial policy, capital markets, and incredibly diverse human talent. So if education isn't the sole engine of the economy, what other hidden systemic forces might be deciding the next decade of global power? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps you see the data behind the headlines.